Welcome back to your favorite faceless mask commentator. I cover news and share my personal thoughts on issues. If you find my commentary interesting, subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment. The Supreme Court recently made a decision to strike down Louisiana's congressional redistricting map that had created a second majority black district. Seems I can't get away from the topic of redistricting. I had to triple dip here because of the major impact this one has across the entire states. Let's just say the House is likely to see a red wave. The reason is because of the famous Voting Rights Act. If you're new to politics and struggling to understand how massive this is, there's a lot of components you need to understand first. Every 10 years, the U.S. counts everyone in the United States. This is called the census. Some areas grow in population while others shrink. Because of this, states draw grid lines representing voting districts. Each district is supposed to have the same amount of people, so everyone's vote counts the same as anyone else's. For example, if a hotspot has about 100,000 people and another has 40,000 people, there would be a line drawn between these two districts, so both would have 60,000 people. Each district is considered either Democrat or Republican, depending on the voting history of the people in that district. Each district also gets a representative in the House of Representatives based off this as well. Some states, especially in recent cases, specifically redraw their maps to get more Democrat or Republican seats in the House of Representatives. This is called gerrymandering. Nobody likes this. Not Democrats. Not Republicans. However, under current law, this is perfectly legal. What isn't legal, however, is racial gerrymandering. This is exactly what it sounds like. It's creating districts specifically around racial groups to inflate or suppress a certain race of people. Though obvious, the reason why racial gerrymandering isn't legal is because of the Voting Rights Act. This act was put in place after the Civil War to stop attacks on black voters. At the time, black people had to pay poll tax, forced to take literacy tests, and deal with specific racial questioning just to register to vote. We're talking genuine racism here, discrimination based purely off someone's skin. There are two important rules in the Voting Rights Act that have to be highlighted here. The first is Section 2, which prevents states from redrawing voting districts or making rules that hurt minority voters. The second is Section 5, saying that if they want to change the voting rules, they have to go through federal courts instead of state courts. We'll come back to the courts in a sec. With this setup, let's fast forward to the 2020 census. Louisiana redrew their map per usual, but only ended up with one majority black district out of 6 voting blocks. This turned some heads because 1/3 of Louisiana's population is black. So a group of black people went to the federal courts claiming that the new map violated Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. The courts agreed that the new map did disenfranchise voters and redrew the map to forcibly add another voter block and seat to the House. The significance of this can't be overstated. It's because of how they proved this violation that many states made soft accommodations to avoid a similar challenge. They proved that though it may not have been purposeful, it still had similar impact intentionally disenfranchising voters. With this came a new redraw that basically slashes through the whole state. It looks like a gash wound. This seems like an open and shut case. But this is actually where things get complicated. This new map was also contested by a group of non-blacks, not just whites. These guys went to another federal court to prove that this new map also violated the Voting Rights Act. To my understanding, they managed to prove two things. The first is that they had direct evidence proving the legislator specifically redrew the maps based on the black race. I say this to highlight that they ignored every other process and criteria used for normal redrawing. The second thing they prove was that the new map basically disenfranchised non-black voters. Again, take a look at this map. The reason these two districts are so big across the state is because the black people there are too dispersed. Something that big most definitely will have a similar impact. To summarize, the state legislators made the map after 2020 census. Blacks sued claiming the map violated the Voting Rights Act. The blacks won and the state redrew it. After this, non-blacks claimed that the process to fix this map violated the Voting Rights Act. They won as well. There obviously can't be two winners here, so what happened after? The issue gets pushed up to the U.S. Supreme Court, the highest judges in the land. This is where that recent ruling came from. With this, let's quickly explain the courts. There's the state court system and the federal court system. The state basically handles local issues related to state laws. The federal court system handles issues related to breaking United States law and the Constitution. The Voting Rights Act falls under the federal law and can also enforce rulings across the entire United States. The lower-ranking courts under federal law are the district courts. There are multiple of these courts. Both groups made an appeal and had their cases heard in two separate courts, which is why there were two different rulings. Under normal circumstances, this dual ruling would go to the next level, which is the U.S. Courts of Appeals. However, thanks to the direct involvement and mention of the Voting Rights Act, it was able to bypass the intermediate court and head straight to the U.S. Supreme Court. In other words, there are no more contentions here. The highest court in the land ruled to maintain the original 2020 census map that started this whole mess. Now, looking at the possible implications of this before the midterms and beyond, this could be huge. For Louisiana itself, the state may have to change its redistricting plan to comply with the decision. Most filing deadlines for this year's congressional races have already passed, so the immediate effect there might be limited, but the broader impact is likely to hit harder in 2028. Nearly 70 of the 435 congressional districts are protected by Section 2, according to election law experts, and the decision could allow Republicans to replace more than a dozen Democratic-held House districts that were previously safeguarded under the Voting Rights Act. We've already seen some movement in red states. For my personal thoughts, I can't blame liberals here. Like I said, no one on either side likes gerrymandering. Had I not seen what my governor tried to pull in this recent redistricting bullshit, I would have sided with the liberals a bit here. If you don't know, I'm Virginian. I'll throw them a bone and say that Trump started this with Texas, but it's more like he relit the fire on an already burning issue. Take a look at New England up north along with other states. Knowing how the process is supposed to work, this is absolutely fucked up. I had no idea this was this bad. Congressional redraws are supposed to look like blocks, not like a cracked earth or bunched up foil. We can come together and say all gerrymandering is bad all you want. However, it's absolute bullshit to bitch and whine over this recent ruling and Virginia's contention when Democrats are clearly disenfranchising Republican and conservative voices. Of course, the white man is gonna throw 'em up when they get sick of bending over ass first. We can't meet at the table until the table is straightened out. And that's coming from a black man behind the avatar. Something I didn't say was one of the statements from the original court case. The blacks used the argument that most blacks vote the same, so the redraw diluted voices. I can assure you that this is a blatant attempt to segregate political voices. I know plenty of black people rejecting the idea that if you don't vote Democrat, you aren't black. The idea that whether or not the state intentionally drew their map the way they did wasn't even talked about. To be fair, the statute in the Voting Rights Act judges actions like this on effect or results, but don't you think intent should play some form of a role here? Intent is how the non-black group won their case, because it was blatantly true that they redrew the map based solely on race. I'm honestly inclined to think that the Louisiana legislators didn't draw those maps on purpose. These people can't win on merit or on policy, so they have to use any tricks they can to stay in power. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments. If you liked the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more. Catch you in the next one.